Well, it seems like it's finally time we start that countdown till we get to see the real Batman again. Hi y'all, SnarkyJay cosplay here. Yes, that intro was made solely to spite the Snyder fanboys. I'm sorry, I had to. You know I still love you guys. But we have some really big Batman news, which feels pretty good to finally have some. Supposedly the sequel to The Batman, which is only called The Batman 2, is set to begin filming in March of 2024, and our main villain supposedly is going to be Clayface. Now, as you're not so friendly neighborhood Bat fanatic, I have more than a few thoughts about this, so let's take a deep dive in. The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, was released in March of 2022, and it actually turned out to be one of Warner Brothers' better performing movies. In its opening weekend at the domestic box office, The Batman raked in over $125 million, and it ended up grossing over $770 million, which was actually really great considering that it was released at the tail end of the pandemic, and there actually were a lot of delays in its release because the filming had to be halted on more than one occasion because of COVID. Despite all of that though, The Batman was a huge success financially, and it actually got really great reviews from fans and critics alike, despite the fact that your occasional bitter Snyderverse fanboy does about the fact that Robert Pattinson was once a sparkly vampire in Twilight. Let me tell you, for a man who once sparkled and definitely still sparkles in my eyes, he can single-handedly pull more honeys than your average Snyder fanboy could ever dream of, so let's try that again. Anyways, I personally loved 2022's The Batman, and I made a video about how much I loved Robert Pattinson's performance as Bruce Wayne / Batman. He really brought something new to the role, and I think for that reason there's so much anticipation for the sequel to this movie. Now, of course, we are faced with some weird sort of energy here. James Gunn's Batman actually has nothing to do with Matt Reeves' Batman, because despite the fact that they've rebooted the whole DCEU, Robert Pattinson's Batman is actually not part of the DCEU at all. It's gonna be its own Elseworlds type of thing, so James Gunn still has yet to pick his Batman. It's not Robert Pattinson, which is pretty tragic because I would love to see as much of that man as possible.
Stop it. Get some help.
So since The Batman's release in 2022, we really haven't heard much about the sequel, but of course nobody is really allowed to talk about it anymore on account of the fact that we're in the midst of a huge SAG-AFTRA strike. But the sources that are coming out and talking about this movie right now are not the writers, the directors, or any actors. I'm also less inclined to believe them on account of the fact that if I don't hear it from Matt Reeves' mouth specifically, I'm not sure how true it is. I'm just doing a little speculation on what has supposedly already been confirmed. If they are planning on starting to film in 2024, that means that they must have gotten a lot of the pre-pro done already, because a lot does have to be handled before anybody ever steps on a film set. Right now, with the SAG-AFTRA strikes going on, there is literally nothing being worked on. March is not that far away, so if we're saying we're starting filming in March of 2024, then that means a lot got done beforehand, or this is a load of bullshit. If filming for The Batman 2 does in fact begin in March of 2024, then I'm assuming we'll be seeing a release date of late 2025 or maybe even early 2026. Now, the other huge thing I want to talk about here is that supposedly Clayface is going to be the villain for this one. Of course, in 2022's The Batman, our main villain was in fact the Riddler, who was portrayed by Paul Dano, and he was written and sort of played it way less the Riddler with like fun riddles and like a stabby thing in the shape of a question mark, and way more like your average Reddit incel. Either way, I felt very at home because it was just too real. Now, if you had given me my choice of villains for the Batman sequel, I would have gone one of two routes. Personally, my dream would be to finally see the Court of Owls hit the big screen. Right now, Robert Pattinson's Batman is way too early in his career, he is way too young, he is way too lonely, and that man is way too busy simping for Catwoman to ever face off against the Court of Owls. So I totally scrapped that idea. What I would have loved to see instead of Clayface, and don't get me wrong, I think Clayface is an interesting and compelling member of Batman's rogues gallery, and I definitely would rather see Clayface than another Joker origin story. I mean, we get the Joker in literally every Batman movie, and I get it, the Joker is in fact a big deal to Batman. He's kind of the other side of that coin, and I know that we all love comparing Jokers to Heath Ledger, but it does get a little bit old, especially when Batman the Animated Series dug so deep into so many of his more interesting villains, and we've seen so many countless fascinating characters throughout his really long comic book run. So Clayface aside, which that reveal I do find a little underwhelming, but like I said, better than having another Joker movie, my vote would have definitely been for Mr. Freeze. I think Mr. Freeze is the only member of Batman's rogues gallery that is not completely f***ing nuts and definitely shouldn't be incarcerated forever. I think Mr. Freeze is actually a genius and maybe just needs help. And there are some really great comic arcs out there where instead of having a really contentious relationship, Batman actually helps Mr. Freeze because I think that he understands that this is somebody who doesn't entirely wish for Gotham's destruction, but just could maybe be helped a little bit. I just think he's an absolutely fascinating character, and I would have loved to see Robert Pattinson's Batman a few years older getting to face off against Mr. Freeze. Either way, if they do start filming in March of 2024 and Clayface is the main villain, I think we'll have a really great film to look forward to at the end of 2025. I think Matt Reeves' The Batman brought a really cool version of the character to the big screen that we really hadn't seen in live action. I think Robert Pattinson absolutely kills it as the Batman, and I think most people's complaints about him will probably be solved by the time a sequel rolls around, because we're gonna end up catching Bruce Wayne a little later in his career and a little bit older. He really inspired the "I can fix him" thing in me, but if he's older and even more suave, I'm still on board with that. No, this video is not me simping and essentially writing a love letter to Robert Pattinson or his Batman, but Robert, if you're watching, call me. And that's all from me. I've been SnarkyJay. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more SnarkyJay, be sure to check out my Instagram, and to support my content creation, feel free to check out my Patreon. Both will be linked in the description below. And let me know your thoughts on The Batman 2 in the comments below.